KPMG's 2026 Global Tech Report, Leading in the Intelligence Age. A confident title. But let's be clear from the start, leadership is not the same as hype. This report surveys 2,500 tech executives, but we must read their answers not as facts, but as perceptions shaped by fear, ambition, and social desirability bias. Our narration will question every leap from we expect to we will achieve. The report is structured into 4 parts: meeting the challenge, realizing value, building adaptive strategies, and foundations for the next wave. We'll follow this order, but we'll also track 3 critical threads: the gap between current maturity and projected leaps, the definitional fuzziness of ROI, and the systematic over-optimism of executives when asked about the future. Guy Holland opens with a balanced warning: avoid both dystopian hype and dismissive skepticism. He notes that only 11% of organizations are at top tech maturity today, but half expect to be there by 2026. That is a 4.5x increase in 1 year. Historically, no major technology transition, not cloud, not mobile, not the internet, has seen such a compressed S-curve across all industries simultaneously. Either the definition of top maturity is too shallow, or executives are systematically overconfident. We'll hold that contradiction. Sample: 2,500 executives from 27 countries, 43% EMEA, 29% Asia-Pacific, 28% Americas. Industries: financial services, 31%, and tech/telecom, 11%, dominate. Critical limitation: the research was conducted in 2025 but projects to 2026. In AI, 6 months changes everything. The data is backward-looking, but the conclusions are forward-looking. Also, executives in highly regulated sectors face different constraints than those in consumer retail. The report treats them as a single population, which may hide important variance. High performers are the top 5% defined by 3 dimensions. Tech maturity, top 2 stages in 5+ categories. Process maturity and ROI of 200% or more. Note: ROI includes cost savings, efficiency gains, risk reduction, not just revenue. This broad definition makes the 5x ROI figure less comparable across industries. Also, by defining high performers as 5%, the report implicitly says 95% are not. That's fine, but many recommendations later emulate the high performers without acknowledging that their practices may be non-transferable without deep structural change. The first major section: meeting the challenge of the intelligence age. The framing assumes the intelligence age is already here. But for most enterprises, the challenge is not mastering AGI, it's making basic AI pilots deliver consistent value. The report risks conflating frontier tech with everyday reality. Let's examine the evidence. Figure 1 shows 79% of organizations are in the top 3 maturity stages across 10 categories. That sounds impressive, but top 3 includes stages where strategies are funded but facing roadblocks, 32%, and on track but not yet scaled, 36%. Only 11% are fully scaled. The average hides the long tail. Cybersecurity leads at 18% fully scaled logical, since that's a mature field. The real test is in newer areas like generative AI, where scaling is harder. The report does not break down maturity by technology type, which would be more revealing. This is the most critical page for logical tension. Respondents predict that the share at top 2 maturity stages will jump from 47% to 83% in 12 months. And 50% expect to reach the highest stage by end of 2026, up from 11% today. That's a 4.5x increase. No prior technology adoption curve moved that fast across all industries. The report acknowledges the question, but does not resolve it. A critical reader would flag this as hockey stick bias, projecting current enthusiasm onto future capability, without accounting for talent, tech debt, or organizational inertia. The only way this is possible is if the definitions are so broad that top stage requires minimal actual change. Now the bottlenecks. 53% still lack necessary talent. 69% admit making trade-offs in security, scalability, or data standardization to move fast. 63% say tech debt costs are holding back new initiatives. These are structural, not temporary. The report notes a 7-point decline in organizations successfully scaling AI into production, from 31% to 24%. That's a real regression. Yet the same page shows 68% expect to reach highest AI adoption by 2026. This is a logical inconsistency. If you're already struggling to scale, a one-year miracle is unlikely unless you change fundamentals. The report calls it optimism, but optimism without a plan is just wishful thinking. High performers offer a counterpoint. Only 8% say tech debt blocks new investment, vs 45% of others. Only 6% miss opportunities due to cost pressure. Only 30% compromise on security, vs 71%. The lesson: discipline early prevents chaos later, but note high performers are only 5% of the sample. Their practices are not easily replicable by the other 95% without significant restructuring. The report implies emulate them, but doesn't quantify the cost or time to transition. Also, correlation. High performers may have started with better foundations, not just made better choices. Average reported ROI is 200% 2x, but the distribution is wide. The report identifies 3 zones: early quick wins, a middle slowdown due to integration complexity, then acceleration again. This S-curve is plausible. However, the data is self-reported and not audited. Companies with poor ROI may underrespond. Also, ROI includes efficiency gains which are real but often capped. High performers achieve 4.5x with lower relative investment. That suggests they've passed the middle dip. For most, the dip is where projects fail. The report does not give the percentage that never exit the dip, a critical omission. Critical page. 58% acknowledge that traditional ROI metrics are insufficient for AI. 55% struggle to demonstrate AI value to stakeholders. Only 24% are achieving ROI across multiple use cases, down 7 points. This decline is significant. It implies that early pilot euphoria is giving way to the reality of production complexity. Rohit Gupta's point about fraud mitigation and cash flow is valid, but those are harder to quantify. The report notes a gap. 80% of C-suite claim a clear AI strategy, but only 68% of senior tech managers agree. That 12-point gap is a governance risk. Strategy that isn't understood isn't a strategy, it's a slogan. High performers again. Only 13% lack business sponsorship, vs 60% of others, and only 17% struggle to communicate AI value, vs 57%. This suggests that the ability to frame AI investments in business terms, not just technical terms, is a key differentiator. But correlation isn't causation. High performers may also have more forgiving cultures, longer time horizons, or simply more resources. The report doesn't control for industry or company size. A small fintech may find it easier to show ROI than a global manufacturer with legacy supply chains. Section 3. Building adaptive strategies. 56% say their tech plans quickly become obsolete, a symptom of rapid change. Yet 78% still rely on established processes for evaluating emerging tech. That's a mismatch. Established processes are designed for stability, not volatility. Investment is split roughly evenly. 35% maintenance, 36% growth, 29% transformation. High performers tilt toward growth, 42%. This makes sense. If you have less technical debt, you can invest forward. But the report doesn't address how to shift from maintenance to growth without first paying down debt, a classic bootstrapping problem. You can't grow your way out of a broken foundation. 78% centralized tech investment prioritization. High performers do even more, 91%. Centralization speeds decisions, but can stifle local innovation. The report acknowledges hybrid models, but doesn't test, which works best by context. On culture, fear of new technology is a major barrier. Dean Bortz notes that 90% of an organization needs training. Jenny Wood emphasizes giving people control. This is logical, but underemphasizes resistance from middle management, often the biggest source of inertia. The report calls for centers of excellence, a reasonable solution, but one that requires dedicated budget and executive air cover. Without those, COEs become powerless talking shops. 67% say ineffective forecasting hampers their ability to respond to market shifts. Yet only 59% of high performers, vs 41% of others, plan to improve data flows for scenario planning. That gap is smaller than expected, suggesting even top performers struggle with data agility. 78% aim to scale digital twins by 2026. Digital twins are powerful but data-intensive. Without clean, real-time data, they are expensive simulations that produce garbage. The report does not address the prerequisite, data governance and integration. Also, forecasting is hard precisely because the future is non-stationary, past patterns break. Better data alone does not solve model drift. Only 2% of high performers have disconnected AI projects, vs 34% of others. 91% centralize investment decisions. Only 6% report employees feeling left behind, vs 39%. These are striking differences. But again, causality is ambiguous. Did centralization cause success? Or did success allow centralization? The report leans toward the former, but a critical reader would note that many failed centralization efforts have created bottlenecks. The key may not be centralization per se, but clarity of decision rights and fast feedback loops. The report doesn't dig into the mechanics. %8 are already investing in agentic AI. 92% say managing AI agents will be an important skill within 5 years. Figure 8 shows digital assistants expected to make up 36% of core tech teams in 2 years, an 8-point increase. Permanent human roles expected to decline modestly, from 45% to 42%. This is a far more measured prediction than many headlines. But the report does not address the risk of agent sprawl, thousands of poorly governed agents creating more chaos than efficiency. Also, the distinction between digital assistants and permanent human roles is fuzzy. If an agent does the work of 0.3 FTE, is that counted as a role? Probably not, which means the real displacement could be larger than the percentage suggests. 90% plan to expand tech partnerships. 36% plan to enhance data sovereignty audits. 41% worry about falling behind on quantum security. These are prudent, but the section on AGI and ASI is largely speculative. The report admits timelines are uncertain, but then urges preparation. That's fine, but preparation for unknown timelines is difficult to operationalize. The quantum section is more concrete. Post-quantum cryptography is a real, near-term requirement. The report notes that 41% feel behind, which means 59% either feel ready or are in denial. Given the complexity of crypto agility, denial is more likely. 85% of high performers collaborate frequently with external partners, vs 73% of others. But 49% of high performers, vs 35% of others, plan to enhance data sovereignty audits, indicating they are more aware of the risks of partnership, not less. 87% of high performers agree they should take more risks on emerging tech. That's a mindset difference. But risk-taking without a safety net is gambling. High performers likely have better safety nets, financial reserves, talent buffers, fallback plans. The report doesn't explore those enablers. Zach Cass introduces the concept of unmetered intelligence, abundant cognitive capacity at near zero marginal cost. He offers 5 tips: portfolio of bets with failure budgets, AI native operating model, behavioral adaptability, governance for scale, and preparing for the next frontier. These are sensible, but the most critical line is, most AI pilots will not cross the chasm. That's an honest admission. The report's own data shows only 24% are achieving ROI across multiple use cases, so the failure rate is high. CAS recommends explicit kill criteria. Yet the main report does not ask whether organizations have those. This is a gap between luminary wisdom and survey reality. Only one recommendation is shown on this page: accelerate learning to build your new competitive moat. That's vague. The full set is presumably on the next page, but the PDF cuts off. In complete versions, KPMG recommends: treat organizational knowledge as strategic currency, institutionalize rapid learning loops, and balance ambition with governance. These are not wrong, but they are generic. A critical reader would ask, specific to what? The report lacks industry-specific or maturity-specific guidance. Telling a bank and a retailer to accelerate learning is not actionable. Promotional page for KPMG Velocity and AI-enabled product suite. Fine, but note, the report is both research and a marketing vehicle. That doesn't invalidate the data, but it does create a potential conflict of interest. The report highlights problems that KPMG services claim to solve. A critical reader should discount recommendations that directly benefit the publisher. Standard legal disclaimers. Some images created using AI. The report is dated January 2026. Given the speed of AI development, much of this analysis will be outdated by mid-2026. That's not a flaw, it's the nature of the topic. But it means readers should treat the findings as directional, not definitive.